Good evening. Welcome to Breaking into Tech, How I Did It and the Things I Do Differently. Our guest speaker this evening is Dayren Tolliver of Warner Media. My name is Jennifer Ponder. I'm located in Atlanta, Georgia. I am the Front-End Track Leadership Fellow. Tonight's guest speaker is Dayren Tolliver. She's located in Atlanta, Georgia. She is a technical publisher support specialist with Warner Media. Dayren graduated from West Texas A&M University in May of 2016 with a BA in marketing. During her senior year of college, she took an intro to programming class, which opened her eyes to the unlimited possibilities that possessing a technical background can provide. After contemplating her career path for some time, Dayren finally decided to go all in and pursue coding as a career. After a lot of dedication and bumps in the road, she recently landed her first job in tech. Now we're going to move on to our Women Who Code front-end mission, which speaks to inspiring women to excel in technology careers. Our vision speaks to a world where women are representative as technical executives, founders, VCs, board members, and software engineers. Please take a look at our code of conduct. We do want to build a collaborative and inclusive network, especially with the Women Who Code front-end technical track. If there's something you want to let us know about, please send us an email at frontend@womenwhocode. You can also take a look at our full code of conduct at womenwhocode.com/code of conduct. Also, just want to go through some of our information here. Welcome back if you're a current member, and welcome to all of our new members this evening. Especially what we want to do is just go over some things with you of how you can get acclimated to the front-end track. Of course, you know you can register for events, and also, of course, if you're new and you're not a member, you can become a member by going to womenwhocode.com/front-end. Email us if there's any webinar tech talks that you'd love to send over to us. Definitely send that to us at frontend@womenwhocode.com. You can also sign up to volunteer and become a part of our leadership team as well. Also, we're on Twitter at WWCode Frontend and on Instagram at WWCode Frontend1. And also we have Slack available. So if you notice on our Twitter and Instagram, we have been posting out Slack invitations. And also please email us if you'd like to join our Slack and you have not found our Slack invitation links posted. We'll definitely love to send you a Slack invitation. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Dayren Tolliver.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dayren, and first of all, I just wanted to say thank you all for taking time out of your day to hear my talk. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Jennifer, can you see my screen?
I can. You're good to go.
Okay. Let me see if I can find a way to, yeah, I'm going to hide that and hide that. Let's see. Okay. All right. As Jennifer said, my talk is titled Breaking into Tech, How I Did It and Things I Do Differently. Again, my name is Dayren Tolliver, and so today I'm going to be telling you how I broke into tech, and if there's something that you know, is of interest to you and you think that I'm going a little too fast, I am going to share out my PowerPoint, so don't feel like that you have to write everything down. So without further ado, I'm going to get into my talk. If it will cooperate, let's see. Give me 1 second. Okay, let's go here. Okay, so this is my agenda. I'm going to briefly go over my bio and mention a few things that Jennifer may have left out. Next, I will go into Hello World, which is basically my intro into coding, my career struggles, which is kind of self-explanatory. Hello World again and again and again, which basically details how many times I stopped coding, going all in when I made the decision to finally pursue coding as a career, getting my first tech role, again, self-explanatory, but I'll tell you how I did it. And then I will go into things I do differently, just so you can avoid some of the same, I guess, loopholes that I wasn't necessarily as fortunate to avoid. And then finally, I'll give you some resources that I used. Okay, so now I'm going to go into my bio. So again, I graduated from West Texas A&M University. It's located in Canyon, Texas, which is about 15 minutes away from Amarillo, which is about 4 hours from Oklahoma City. It's right in the top of West Texas, and Canyon is a very small town, about 14,000 people. I guess kind of a fun fact, I actually found my school on Google. I'm originally from Montgomery, Alabama, and my family moved around a lot because my dad works for the prison system. So during my senior year in high school, we were living in Minnesota, and he found out that he had gotten a job back in Texas. So I decided, one day I'm just going to Google schools in West Texas, and West Texas A&M popped up, and I actually had to apply for school before I actually got to visit. And fortunately, I ended up liking it, so I got lucky there. Currently, I'm living in Atlanta. I've been here since 2016, and it's a pretty cool place to live. So if you've never been, definitely come visit. Currently, I am a technical publisher support specialist at Warner Media. It's formerly Turner Broadcasting. At some point last year, AT&T acquired our company, so the new name is now Warner Media. I'm going to try to stick with saying Warner Media throughout the presentation, but Turner is just a little bit easier to say, and if you live in the Atlanta area, it's just, our company as Turner. As part of my role, I'm responsible for several different brands, four of those being TBS, TNT, True TV, and Team Coco. So Team Coco is Conan O'Brien's, I guess he has like a microsite. And so my job as a technical publisher support specialist is to make sure that our ads are displaying correctly on our websites. So for example, let's say it's not really on my brands, but for CNN, which is under Warner Media, they do a lot of display ads. And it's, let's say, for example, Coca-Cola paid a lot of money and they want their ads to display on the homepage of CNN. It would be my job to make sure that their ads are displaying correctly, and if they're not, figuring out why. In my free time, I enjoy reading and sometimes applying self-help books. I think that's pretty normal for any person. You read a lot of good things, but don't always apply them. So I'm trying to make a point to actually start applying things. So, yeah, and at the end of my presentation, I have a few recommendations for some good books that I've read lately. So next, I'm going to go into Hello World, which again is just kind of like my intro into programming. So at some point during my sophomore year of college, I stumbled across Hour of Code. I'm not really sure how I found out about it, but I just remember watching some video featuring Mark Zuckerberg, who is the founder of Facebook, just talking about the importance of, knowing how to code and learning, and, it can be fun and things of that nature. So I participated, and I think from what I remember, I was able to get through the Hour of Code, and I think it was interesting to some degree, but not necessarily enough to keep my attention, because I don't think that I picked it up again until my senior year of college. So during my senior year of college, I took my first and only Intro to Programming class. During that class, I learned HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and I pretty much took the class on a whim, because I had a friend who had taken the class previously, and he learned how to build a calculator. And I guess I thought back to my time that I participated in Hour of Code, and it just made me just want to do it. And I felt like, it's a free elective, what could it hurt? So during that class, I really got a taste of, what programming was all about, and it was just a lot of fun. And I actually, at the time, was regretting, I wish I had taken the class a lot sooner. And at that point, again, in my senior year, it was spring semester, and I was about to graduate with my marketing degree. So I was like, it's just a little too late. This is something that I decided that I would just, keep in my back pocket. And I felt like I had the foundations down, so it would be something that I could easily, or I felt that it would be something that I could easily, continue learning on my own if I wanted to. Next, I am going to go into my career struggles. So I didn't say it before, but, I think that a lot of people say that I'm kind of funny. I have a dry sense of humor. So there'll be times where if I say something, it's okay to laugh. I can't hear you anyway. But I also, on the other hand, I plan to, be very real with you guys and, share that my career definitely has not gone the way that I wanted to over the past 3 years since I graduated. So I guess you get to kind of see the real me and, my real struggles. So without further ado, into my career struggles. So I graduated from college in May 2016, and like a lot of grads, I couldn't find a job. So I didn't have a job lined up when I graduated. So with my family living in Atlanta, I decided to come home because that was like the next logical step. So while I was in college, during my summer breaks, I would work at Six Flags Over Georgia in their cash control department. And basically the job was we would count the money at the end of the night. So all the guests, you spend money at the different restaurants or on games and things of that nature. And it would be our job to then go get the money out of the safe and count it in our facility. So I found myself after college working there again for about $9 or $10 an hour. And it wasn't a bad job, but again, it was just a job. It wasn't something that was going to turn into a career. So it was very disappointing. So I did that for the entire season. I think it was like the 2016 season. And finally, 10 months after graduating, I finally landed a job at a consulting firm. Pretty soon into the consulting position, I knew that things weren't going well. And I had discussed with higher ups, potentially, getting on a performance plan and, things that I could do to improve, but things just weren't working out. And then 10 months after getting my job, or actually, let me back up. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So once I got the position, I thought I had made it, and I had a really nice salary and a really nice apartment downtown. And, thought that life was great. And, it was only up from here because, it took me 10 months to find this job. And, just thought that, it was all worth the struggle and things of that nature. But again, things weren't going well, and I knew they weren't going well. But one day I walked into my job, and by the end of the day, I did not have a job anymore, which was kind of surprising to me. So it was a very tough time for me, and I didn't necessarily know how to proceed, basically. I'll tell you, I'm like the first person or the last person that I thought would ever be in a position where, not only did I not have a job, but I was let go. So it really hurt. I was really embarrassed and just really mad at the world for a really long time, if I'm being completely honest. So back to Six Flags I went. In addition to going back to Six Flags, I had to, again, work hourly. I think I'd gotten like a $1 raise, so I was up to $10 or $11 an hour, but I couldn't afford to keep my apartment anymore downtown, so I had to break my lease and move back in with my family. So that was just a really hard time for me, but again, just wanted to be real, and, life isn't always what you think it's going to turn out to be. So next I go into Hello World again and again and again, which is basically, how I decided finally after I lost my job at the consulting firm. I lost my job in December of 2017. And with my having a marketing degree, I thought, I really wanted to use my degree. So I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my career because aside from it, being really sad and my being hurt, I was trying to look at it from a positive light. Like, I definitely realized that I didn't want to do consulting, but it was just like, what do I want to do now? So I looked at different opportunities. I was thinking about maybe something with digital marketing, but it seemed like no matter where I turned, all the job applications I filled out, just nothing was working out. So finally, in about March of 2018, I started to finally consider coding as a career. So I stumbled upon Free Code Camp somehow and just dabbling in that on and off. But I would just experience a lot of self-doubt and why me? I'm still struggling with being let go. And it was just like the littlest things that would frustrate me about coding would make me stop coding for weeks or months at a time. And I just felt like if I couldn't get this concept, I'm obviously not cut out to code. So again, I quit coding several times, and it actually just 2018 was a really rough year for me, applying for different positions, never hearing back. And looking back, I realized, I shouldn't have put all my eggs in one basket, thinking that this was the job for me. So finally I got to the point where I found myself getting a second part-time job at a warehouse, and I was trying to make the best of that of that situation and thought that, potentially I could move up with that company. So I decided, I think that I actually quit coding for around 6 months then too. And I just didn't apply for anything because at that point, like, it was just one disappointment after another. And I felt like I couldn't handle another disappointment. So finally, around February of this year, or actually it probably was January, I decided that I had to just, change my mindset because, I realized that the warehouse, I wasn't interested in pursuing something with them full time. I didn't like the company. And I realized at that point I had been let go from my previous job in 2017, and I can no longer say that I had gotten let go a year ago, because at that point it had been a year and like a month. So I just realized that nothing is going to change if I don't. So I decided that, I just have to go all in, and I'm going to start coding. And no matter how hard it gets, no matter how frustrated I get, I'm just going to have to stick with it, because in some sense I felt like I was backed into a corner, which maybe that's not the right analogy, because I do genuinely enjoy coding, but I felt like maybe all these other things weren't working out because this is what I was truly meant to do. So going all in, I decided at the beginning of this year that I was going to start attending meetups regularly and just, asking for help when I needed it, because that was like one of the main reasons why I stopped coding so much, is because I wasn't asking for help. For whatever reason, I had a tendency to be very stubborn, and again, just feeling like, well, if I can't get this one concept, then obviously I'm just not cut out for this, which obviously was not the case. In addition to that, while I was, so two of the meetups that I was attending consistently were Technologists of Color here in Atlanta and Free Code Camp Atlanta. And I'd gotten to know a few people from both of the meetups pretty well. And I remember one day vividly, just, I think it was around March of this year, I just decided on a spur of the moment to just start participating in 100 Days of Code. And this was actually my second go-around at trying 100 Days of Code, because around October of last year, I decided that I was going to do it. I thought that, my doing it and putting out there on Twitter would help hold me accountable. But I think at some point I was in about 20 days, and I think it was something to do with some CSS, something simple, and I just couldn't handle the fact that I couldn't get it, and I just stopped coding even more. Or once again. But this time around, I was like, I'm going to stick with it. And I think that one of my first pieces of advice are, if you're, learning how to code, of course, I would recommend 100 Days of Code. There are a lot of other hashtags out there, like Code Newbie, and, Women Who Code and things of that nature. And I'd say whatever you're doing, just have an online presence while you're coding. I personally chose Twitter to hold myself accountable. But I know a lot of people use LinkedIn, and if there's something else that you would prefer to, I guess, kind of, I look at it almost as a journal to hold you accountable. I can look back and say, oh, on day 67, I did this, or, did that, or whatever. And it's also something good to, I guess, kind of be proactive, because if you're looking to pursue a career, it'd be nice to have a recruiter or your potential next boss go out and see that, okay, this person is serious. They're really putting in the work and holding themselves accountable. Next, I decided to network. I guess I consider networking a little bit different than meetups, because with meetups, it was more at the time for me to just get help with whatever I was struggling with. But I mean, I guess, the two can go hand in hand. So naturally, I'm more of an introvert, so networking is very hard for me, and it's something that I just avoided at all costs. But again, with my going all in, I realized that, I'm just going to have to suck it up and just start going to events. Looking back now, I can see the importance of doing that, because I would much rather have a referral than just blindly applying on some job board like Indeed, for example. Back when I was a senior in college, we were a couple of weeks away from graduating, and I remember a lady from Career Services coming and talking to us about something called the hidden job market. and I don't remember all the statistics off the top of my head, but basically there's a large number of jobs out there that never make it to the job boards because a lot of the times companies, they just prefer referrals, which makes sense because, you know, you already have someone at your company and, you know, they're probably doing a good job, and, you know, your company's probably going to want to hire someone that you're recommending versus blindly applying some random person off a job board. So sometimes, you know, I'll see on Twitter that, you know, someone has, you know, applied for hundreds of jobs or whatever, and they're just not getting any, or they're not hearing anything back. And I want to stress that, you know, I don't think that, you know, Indeed or these job boards are necessarily bad, but I wouldn't put all of my hopes into just doing just that. I would really recommend that you make a point to start networking, and you never know what could happen there. Which, again, is not to say that, you know, 100% of the time a referral is going to work out, because I definitely had referrals not work out, but I would place my bets on a referral before just blindly applying on Indeed, for example. I also made a point to start going to conferences. So I actually got the opportunity to attend Refactor Tech here in Atlanta in June, and I actually applied for a scholarship, and I was actually awarded that scholarship. At the time, I was working at the warehouse, and I was making like $300 a week if I was lucky. And so if I remember correctly, Refactor's ticket prices were a little over $200. So it would have been a stretch for me to pay for the ticket. So I decided to go out on a limb and just apply for a scholarship, and worst case scenario, they tell me no. But fortunately, I was awarded that scholarship. So that would just also be another piece of advice that I would give you guys is apply for scholarships, because you never know what could happen. And if they don't work out, a lot of times these conferences have the opportunity to volunteer. And obviously it's a little bit different with volunteering, because you may not necessarily get to see all the tech talks that you wanted to see, but it's a lot better than not being at the conference at all. Then finally, as far as like the networking piece goes, you know, again, I already said that, you know, I'm a little bit of an introvert. So one piece of advice that someone gave me was to just ask someone, you know, have you been here before? And this isn't like some surefire way to, you know, get conversation going, but I think that it's a lot better than, you know, just, you know, something like talking about the weather. I found that it's been very helpful for me. So for example, I would ask someone like, oh, have you been to Refactor before? And a lot of the times it does end up sparking conversation. So that's just kind of like my go-to question when I'm, you know, meeting somebody for the first time or just approaching them for the first time, because it could be very difficult for me to get to know people. So yeah, I definitely would recommend a question like that if you're introverted like me. I also attended another conference in April of this year. I don't remember the name of it, but it was in Augusta, Georgia. I had a really great time there. And I sat in on a talk by Jerome Hardaway, who is the founder of WWCode. And I'm not a veteran, but I just decided that I was just going to sit in on this talk. And we talked briefly after I attended his talk, and there wasn't like much conversation. I didn't necessarily know like what was going to happen after the fact, but we ended up following each other on Twitter. And I remember one day when I was posting for my 100 Days of Code, I was talking about some CSS challenges that I was having, and he offered to help me. And at the time I was like, you know, I don't think I really need help right now. I just want to, you know, figure it out on my own. But I realized after the fact that, you know, he was somebody that I could go to if I really wanted help. So I eventually did reach out to him, and he offered to be my mentor. So as part of his being my mentor, he had a few rules that I had to abide by in order to stay within his program, I guess you could call it. So I had to have one GitHub commit a day, which isn't necessarily a lot, but it's definitely something that I recommend you getting into the habit of, because it's a good feeling to see those green squares light up every time you log into your GitHub account. Right now, I'll say that mine is looking pretty pitiful, so I won't share my username with you guys, but at the time when I was working with him, it was one GitHub commit a day, and that just, it gets you into the habit and the mindset of, you know, coding consistently. Next, we had to blog consistently. For us, it was, we had to put out a blog every week. I started with, when I was originally coding, I started with Medium, but I did move to Dev 2. If you've never been to Dev 2 before, I like it a little bit better than Medium because it's kind of like a hub for all things tech. Medium is great because it's a large platform, but it's not as niche. And I feel like, so I've currently written about 3 articles on Dev 2, and since I've shared them on Twitter, the Dev 2 team has actually shared them themselves. So I've gotten a lot of positive interactions with my articles, which has definitely at first, been a huge ego boost, but also it feels good to know that you have a good reach and your articles are getting out there to people who need them the most. And then finally, if you feel like you're not the strongest writer, I would just recommend maybe like video instead. I don't like the sound of my voice, so I don't post anything on YouTube, but if that's something that you would rather do, I would definitely recommend, getting, things out there that way. Because the idea with this is just be willing to share information. I didn't go to a boot camp and I don't have a computer science degree, so in some sense I'm self-taught, but no one is truly self-taught. I attended a talk at Refactor Tech by a guy named Ray. I don't remember his last name, and his whole premise of his talk was that, no one is self-taught. There was someone out there who was willing to share that information with you. So I would just encourage you to be willing to do the same. Next, I got involved with an organization here just outside of Atlanta called RefCode, and it is an organization that teaches refugees how to code in about 8 to 10 weeks. I started with them in about May of this year, and it's been a really positive experience for me, not only just getting to know our students, but it's also very helpful for people like me who were trying to get better at learning concepts. It can be challenging at times because sometimes a student will ask me like a really simple question, but it forces you to think, why do we do the things that we do? Because, you get some experience with coding and then you forget about, I did this because of this. So I would definitely encourage you, if you have the opportunity to volunteer, even if it's just like a one-day type thing, that you do it. Because not only are you giving back to the community, but it's also helping you become a better programmer too. So next I will get into getting my first tech role. With my consistently attending the Free Code Camp meetings here in Atlanta, I've gotten to know the co-organizer, Narando, pretty well. And one night, just before I was about to go to bed and have to get up to a job that I absolutely hate every morning, he called me on a Sunday night. He was like, hey, so how are your debugging skills? And I'm just like, I don't really have any debugging skills, but, I guess they're okay. So he told me about an opportunity with Turner or Warner Media that he had found out about through a lady named Rachel, who also, I believe she's a co-organizer as well for Free Code Camp. And she originally had him in mind for the position, but he's attending a boot camp and he's actually graduating in about a week and a half. So congrats to him. But he decided that he couldn't take on the position, but he thought of me, which again goes back to networking. So I figured, I would give it a try as far as like submitting my resume, but I was going to try my best not to get my hopes up because I had done that so many times last year and had several referrals just, kind of fall through. So I decided that I was going to give my resume to her and, and just see what happened. So got to know Rachel, was able to talk to her about like what her job was, and she told me about how the company was and just the team in general was great, and that she also offered me some really great resume critiques. So again, networking, referrals. If I would have blindly applied for this position, I would not have known all these different things. Also, with the insights into the interview process, I learned through her and another former employee, Krista, who also attends the Free Code Camp Atlanta meetups, that the interview that they had been, they were asked to demo Chrome DevTools. With our position, we do a lot of troubleshooting. And so it's really important that you know the ins and outs of Chrome DevTools. So I made a point to go to the documentation and just know it inside and out. So I went and I had my interview, I believe, on July 2nd of this year. And so first I had a phone interview. I felt like it went okay, and didn't really hear back for a couple of weeks, I believe. But a couple of days later, I actually heard back finally, and they told me that they wanted to do the interview, a group interview. So Turner had been like a dream company for me, and I was kind of nervous about the position, but I decided that, you know, whatever happens, happens, and if it's meant to be, it's gonna be. So I did pretty well, obviously, with the interview process, and the next day they called me and told me I had the job, and I was just so excited, and it made all the struggle worth it, I guess, in some sense, because I worked really hard, and it paid off. So again, technical publisher support specialist, and funny story, I actually, back when I was working at the consulting firm, I used to live about a mile from Warner Media, and sometimes when I would be walking in downtown Atlanta, I would walk past there, and I would say to myself, you know, I really want to work here someday. So after I was let go from the consulting firm, I probably applied to Warner Media like 7 to 10 times. But this time, the only difference was that I had a referral. So again, I was just trying to implant into your brains. It's really important to get out there and get to know people. So yeah, it was meant to be. And I'm really loving my position. I have really great coworkers who are teaching me a lot. I guess I should expand a little bit upon my position. So obviously I'm not a front-end developer, but I have to have the skill set to work in my position. So I definitely want to keep developing and coding and doing things on the side, because I never know, you know, what can happen. And Warner Media, like, it's a huge company and there's plenty of opportunities. So I definitely want to, you know, keep working at that. But I feel very fortunate to be where I am today. So yeah, networking pays off. So next I will get into the things that I do differently. So first would be to ask for help sooner. People want to help you. That's something that even I still struggle with today. You know, when you're struggling with something and you feel like a burden when you ask somebody like, hey, can you help with this? But for the most part, there are people out there that want to see you succeed, and they want to help you get through whatever challenge you're going through. So don't be afraid to ask for help, and do it soon. Quickly apply what you've learned. I'm speaking specifically from my experiences like Free Code Camp. A lot of times, you know, you'll complete like 3 or 4 sections, and then they'll have you try to complete a project. And a lot of times I would complete the sections and I would say to myself, oh, I'll get to the project later. Like, I'll wait till the very end to do it. But knowing myself, I would end up forgetting all or half of what I learned. And so it was just like double the work. So I would really encourage you to, if you learn something, try to apply it pretty quickly. If you're not understanding a concept from one resource, find a resource that explains it better. Again, speaking from my experience with Free Code Camp, I think that it's a really wonderful resource, but at the same time, at times it can be lacking. It's one of those situations where you get what you pay for, and with Free Code Camp being free, I think that sometimes they could do a little bit better with some of the things as far as like explaining it. One of the times I quit coding, I didn't understand switch statements, so I stopped for like several weeks, and in hindsight, I should have just gone to a resource that explains switch statements better. And in my experience, I don't think I've ever used a switch statement. So just don't feel dumb if you're not getting it from one resource. You just have to find a way to make it make sense for you. Go to the documentation. For my interview with Turner, when I was trying to get better at learning the Chrome DevTools, I went straight to Chrome DevTools documents. If let's say you're trying to learn Bootstrap, make sure you go to Bootstrap's documentation, or React. Like, there's nobody that's going to teach it better than the people that work in it day in and day out and help to make it better. So I would definitely say go there first. And I'm not, I wouldn't say that it's, always going to make sense to you, because I definitely recommend, like, if it's not making sense, then of course go somewhere else. But I think that's something that we often forget is, go to the documentation. So hopefully that makes sense. Next, I'm guilty of not necessarily doing this all the time, but with your projects, try to solve a problem. And if it's usually, the thinking is that it's a problem that's in your life, like, you want to find out how to automate something. So make a project that's geared towards solving a problem that you're constantly having in your life. Apply even if you don't meet all the qualifications. I just read a book a few weeks ago called Brave, Not Perfect. And in it, it basically says that as women, we are hesitant to apply for positions that we don't meet 100% of the qualifications for, while men are, they'll apply even if they only meet 60% of the qualifications. In a second, I can show you guys the job description for the position that I currently have, and I might meet like 20% of those. So basically what I'm saying is, if it's something that you're interested in, just go ahead and apply. Of course, it doesn't mean that you're going to get it, but don't rule yourself out before even trying. I saw on Twitter a couple weeks ago this idea of don't self-reject, which I think is something that we as humans in general just do a lot. So don't just have a little faith in yourself. And, if it's meant to be, it's going to be, but don't count yourself out before even giving yourself a shot. And finally, just don't quit. It kind of like sums up all these different things that these previous bullet points. It just, I realized that I wanted to be a developer, but I just kept psyching myself out and saying, oh, once I get a decent job, I'll make a point to start coding again, and then maybe that'll be my next job. But just think about where you are now and where you could potentially be a year from now. And if this is something that you really want to do, just stick with it. You just have to just make sure you're doing your part. And, certainly there will be times where, you're going to get frustrated and, you're going to feel like things just aren't going well, but don't quit. It's not worth it. So these are the resources that I used. Again, I'm going to be sharing this PowerPoint out in the Slack channel, so don't feel like you have to, grab everything all at once. But I'll just briefly go over them. Free Code Camp, Treehouse, I dabbled in a little bit. My only criticism of Treehouse is I personally don't like subscription models, and there were plenty of times where I wouldn't code for weeks at a time and I was still getting charged like $25 a month. But overall, the content is it's really good, so I recommend it if you don't mind subscriptions. Udemy, I like it a little bit better because it's like a one-time price, and a lot of the times the instructors end up updating it and you don't have to pay any extra. Never pay full price for the courses. I've heard of people, getting suckered in. Sometimes the course will be listed as $100, but in reality, you could probably get it for 10 or 15. So my general rule of thumb is I personally don't pay more than 15. I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard that if you opt into their marketing emails, you'll never have to worry about being charged those crazy prices, $100 and up. So I personally unsubscribed before I found out about this, which I'm sure I could get back into it, but I'm not going to because I don't want the email. But anyway, don't pay full price is what I'm trying to say. Eatabit is some good JavaScript problems. They're like bite-sized JavaScript problems that I had found out about from a person that I met at a networking event. So it's definitely some good stuff to check out. Learn Enough to Be Dangerous. I learned how to use the command line there. Very thorough stuff. Front-end Developer Handbook. Then Traversity Media on YouTube. You can never go wrong there. There's a website called Pramp.com. I personally haven't used it, but the idea is that it is there to help you prepare for, they're basically mock interviews. So there's a real live person on the other end, and they're helping you to prep for what a real interview would be like. And then finally, front-end mentor. I personally haven't used it yet, but I'm going to pretty soon once I get back into coding consistently. But the idea there is that you become a better front-end developer by coding what you see online. So they'll give you like a challenge, like make this website, and I believe you're kind of like graded in a sense on how closely it looks to what they gave you. So check that out. Bonus things, and I'm almost done. Say yes when an opportunity arises. When Jennifer actually reached out to me and offered me the opportunity to present, I was like, heck no, like I don't want to do this. Like I was thinking it to myself, and you know, I decided finally, like, you know, I need to say yes to this opportunity. I don't know what's going to come of it, and you know, maybe nothing will, but at the very least, like I'm pushing myself outside of a comfort zone. So if an opportunity arises that you're interested in, you know, just say yes, because you're never going to feel ready for it. Next is having a kudos folder, and this applies like no matter what role you're in, whether you're in tech now, whether you want to be in tech, whatever job you have. I found out about this actually when I was in the consulting world. Basically, the idea is that whenever someone thinks that you did really well, like, oh, for example, I did really well on this project and someone on the team thought so, and, you know, they got it in writing or something, I then go and put that in a folder specifically called my kudos folder. So at the end of the year, if you have your yearly review and your boss, you know, wants, if let's say you want a raise or something like that, you can then go into that kudos folder and have basically all the praise that you've gotten throughout the year from different people, like, oh, I really enjoyed when Dayren helped me with this, or, you know, she was helpful or whatever. So it's just, I guess, kind of in a sense, a justification, not only for keeping you there, but, you know, paying you well. So have one of those. I think I already said it, but you're never going to feel ready, so just do it. And these are two books that I read recently. One of them is Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. I've at times struggled with anxiety, and it's been debilitating at times. So it was a pretty good book because basically the premise is you're not going to get rid of the fear unless you do the thing that you're afraid of. So definitely recommend that. And then also Brave Not Perfect by Reshma Shujani, who is the founder of Girls Who Code. So good books there. And then finally, don't compare your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. Definitely not my quote. I couldn't credit the author because it seems to be really hard to find. But the idea is that, you know, with my story in particular, you know, if you didn't know me before, and I'm sure not many of you do, you would have never known all of the struggles that I had to go through to get to the point where I'm at today. You know, you may have been following my journey on Twitter and thought, oh, you know, she's been coding for 100 days and she got a job, you know, lucky her, but you know, you're getting down on yourself, when that wasn't necessarily the case at all. You know, I've been coding on and off for 3 years now, and I had to go through a lot of things to get to where I'm at. So just be cognizant of that. You know, don't compare your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. A year ago, I was working 2 jobs, 2 part-time positions for like $400, and now I'm in a much better position. So it's just basically hard work pays off, and you just never know. Just keep doing your part, and you never know where you can end up. So you can connect with me, Dayren Tolliver on LinkedIn and Dayren_Tolliver on Twitter. And finally, I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for listening to my talk, and then again, Jennifer, for giving me the opportunity in Women Who Code. So thank you. Well, actually, I just thought of one more thing. So I did want to show you guys the job description for the job I applied for. So, you know, I told you, let's see, to apply anyway. So, yeah, I'll take you down there. Okay, so I definitely do not have a bachelor's degree in computer science. I do have a business degree. I don't have experience with developing ad technology and blah, blah, blah. No experience troubleshooting digital players, things of that nature. Definitely don't have 5 years experience in ad ops. Didn't really know what DoubleClick or Freewheel were, or an order management system. didn't have this, didn't have this. The only thing that I can confidently say that I had experience with before applying for this position was the HTML JavaScript position. So with all these different bullet points, let's say there's like 10 of them, I meet like one qualification on paper. So it just goes to show not only the power of networking, because if I would have seen this position online, I would have thought, you know, oh, I'm definitely not qualified. And honestly, I wouldn't have gotten as far as I did without having the referral. But just, you know, I'm not qualified on paper. So if it's something that, you know, you're really interested in, just go ahead and apply for it. And hopefully you have a connection there too, if it's, you know, something that you really want to pursue. And then also, this is my friend Arando, who he was kind of the one that referred me to the position. But I'm over here in the corner right here. This is the one and only networking event that I went to last year for Free Code Camp Atlanta. I said at the time that I would make a point to keep going again, but I didn't. But it's kind of funny because the person sitting next to me is actually Rachel, who is now my coworker, and she's the one that actually referred me to the position. And across from her is my other coworker, my now coworker, Chris, who also works there too. So it's just one of those things where, you know, this is me in 2018, just trying to figure it out. And little did I know that a year and a half later, these two people would be my coworkers. So networking and just being at the right place at the right time really pay off. So yeah, I think that's all I have for real this time. But again, thank you guys so much for listening to my talk. And I hope that you got something out of it. So I'll turn it back over to you, Jennifer.
Well, thank you so much, Dayren, for your talk tonight. That was a lot of great information. I hope everyone really listened to everything that Dayren had to say this evening. We're going to open up the floor for questions right now. So we're going to take a few minutes to just get some questions in, and I'm going to come back with our closing updates and remarks before we close out this evening, and to thank our sponsors. So we're going to open up the floor now.
So we do have one question. It's actually more of a comment. It just says, I just wanted to thank you for sharing and for your honesty. I am also an introvert and struggle with networking. Next time I will be sure to ask if they've been at the event before.
Thank you so much for the kind words. I hope that it's helpful to you.
Okay, and then another comment, just thanks, Dayren. And then also, thank you. I am a serial programmer too, and it's nice to see perseverance pays off.
Thank you again for the kind words. It's very helpful for me to feel like I made a difference. So thank you, Diana.
And then if anyone has any questions, feel free to either use the question and answer functionality, or you can type them in the chat, or if you prefer, you can also raise your hand. Okay, so we have a question here from Jane. How many hours a day did you code?
So it varied. When I was participating in 100 Days of Code, the idea, or I guess the rules, and I'm doing air quotes for rules, is that you code for an hour a day at least. There were certainly days where I didn't code at all. I just looked at like a YouTube video or something of that nature. But there would be days, like I said, where I would code not at all, and then other days where I would code for 4 hours. But the main thing was just that I was consistent with whatever I was doing. So I made a point every day. If I wasn't coding, I was looking at something code related. So.
Okay, and then another question, how did you select what to code for 100 days?
I believe when I first started, I was just kind of going off of what Free Code Camp had as far as their projects. Then I made a project on my website, which don't look at the website. It's under construction, but I made a magic 8-ball, and I created one because I just liked it, and I liked the idea of functionality. As far as like my languages go, I'm still, you know, have a bias towards just JavaScript, and I definitely want to get better at that. I guess I hopefully answered your question. It was mainly just going off of Free Code Camp projects. But definitely, if you're struggling with what to code, Google is always a place I turn. You know, Google good projects. And again, if you feel like there's something in your life where you can solve a problem, do that as well.
Thank you. Next question is from Diana. You mentioned you volunteered at a specific place. Can you share where?
Yes, I volunteer with RefCode. It's REF code. Ref is short for refugees. And I believe the website is refcode.com. Let me double check that before I say. Give me 1 second. Yeah, it's refcode.org actually.
Great, thank you. Next question is from Olivia. Tech is a very white, male-dominated field. How do you deal with being a minority woman in this field? What advice would you give to another minority woman who is afraid of feeling othered going forward in a career in tech?
So I feel like I'm very fortunate living here in Atlanta. One of the places, in addition to Free Code Camp, that I was going to consistently was called Technologists of Color. So this was strictly for people of color in tech. So it was a situation where, there I felt like it was a safe place. And I'm also very fortunate in my job now where they have a lot of opportunities for minorities, not just in terms of race, but women in tech and things of that nature. So I feel that, maybe if you don't have something, I would first look to see what opportunities are, what they are in your community and see what's out there. I usually just go to meetup.com and just see what they have. And if you're ever feeling, isolated, there are a lot of people on Twitter and that talk about these things and how they deal with it. Since I'm so new into my position, I haven't really encountered any issues. My team is very male dominated, but again, they are super helpful and things of that nature. But I would imagine at some point in my career, there will be times where, you don't always feel as welcome. But for right now, I'm pretty lucky because I choose to surround myself with people that do look like me in my field. So.
Great, thank you. So there's no further questions currently. And then, yep, just a couple comments in the chat, but nothing that is a question, looks like.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I just wanted to thank you guys again so much. And I don't post on Twitter a lot, but I do check it constantly. So if you ever have a question about something, you can always ask me there. And if I don't know the answer, which chances are I probably don't, I can do some Googling to help you. And I can also redirect you to someone who probably does know the answer. So feel free to reach out to me. And back to you, Jennifer.
Okay, all right, awesome. Thank you so much for your questions, everyone. We're just going to go through some of our last minute announcements here. Just give us just a second here. So just want to let you know all the things that's coming up for front end. Of course, we have the Slack study group every Friday at 2 p.m., which is led by Cecilia. She's on right now. So basically, for the most part, you all have been going over CSS and SAS related information so far. Is that correct, Cecilia?
Yes, that is correct. We've been working through advanced CSS topics every Friday. They do vary. Last week we talked about CSS Grid and CSS Flexbox, and this week we're going to be going into preprocessors like SAS and LESS. And anybody who would like to be involved is welcome to either send us an email to get invited to the Slack if they're not already on it, or you can also reach out to us on Twitter or Instagram.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, and also we do have our Twitter Tech Chat every first and third Tuesday of the month, basically to talk about tech trends, anything that you're noticing that's hot on the internet right now. We do like to go over that. Anything in front-end web development that's coming down the pipeline, we do love to just get into a discussion on our Twitter page at WWCode Front End. Also, just want to let you know, September for this month, we want to go over UX, UI design, and front-end related concepts. So if there's anything you want to let us know about, any tech talks that we need to feature, please email us, frontend@womenwhocode.com. Also, drop us a line in our Slack. Also, the invitations are out there again. The 2019 Women Who Code Front-End Developer Summit, it is approaching. It's October 12th in Berlin, Germany. Tickets are on sale now. You can log on to frontend.womenwhocode.dev for more information on those. And also, we just want to thank our sponsors this evening, BCG Digital Ventures and the Home Depot. And thank you all for watching this presentation. Do find us online. You can find us on Twitter and also our Instagram page, and also keep up with us on Slack. So we're always where you need us. If there's any help that you need, definitely you can log on to our Slack for that as well. But we will see you at our next online event.